Hey guys, so yesterday my youngest son went back to his tennis tykes, his mini tennis lesson for the first time since this last lockdown. And therefore it's the first time I've been outdoors with a number of people who I don't directly know. I've had people in here for sessions over the course of the last week, we had sessions in the park prior to that. But they were all people I knew who knew the score that we needed to stay a certain distance apart. And at tennis, it was very noticeable that people kept getting a bit too close. And it was only for a second or two, but it was really noticeable, felt very strange. And then straight after that, we're on the way back and we dropped off something at a friend's house and spoke to them on the drive from about 5 meters away and had a conversation about, even now as we start to come out of it, still feels very weird getting close to people. And come June the 21st, when actually probably that's in theory completely okay and we'll be allowed in houses and we can in theory go back to what we always used to do, it's going to take some unpicking. It's going to take some changing back to old habits over time. It's going to feel weird being in someone's kitchen, having a drink, chatting to them from the sort of distances that we would have thought nothing of prior to COVID. So clearly a habit's been created there, in my mind, and I'm sure for millions of other people. Something that was never an issue before, getting within 2 meters of someone, is now, that's just what we do. We keep 2 meters away from them kind of automatically, and it's noticeable when we don't. Habits take an amount of time to form and an amount of time to change. And people often ask how long that is. And unfortunately, there's no concrete answer. You may see these adverts for smoking cessation methods that say it takes 28 days to form a new habit, or if you stop smoking for 2 months, you're 5 times more likely to continue stop smoking, which to me makes no sense, because if you are not smoking after 2 months, to me, you're infinitely more likely to carry on not smoking than if you've started smoking again. But anyway, habits take not necessarily an amount of time, but a number of repetitions. Because if the habit you're trying to create is something you do once a month or once a year, if the habit you're trying to get into is submitting your annual tax return on time, you can't create that habit in 28 days. It's going to be a number of repetitions. All habits come after a number of repetitions, and the frequency we need to get those repetitions in varies depending on what the habit is. After 2 or 3 years, 2 or 3 reps of getting your tax return on time, you're possibly in that habit. After 2 or 3 workouts in a week, you may be not quite into that habit of doing 2 or 3 workouts a week for the rest of your life. But ultimately, the key is it's repetitions. When we come out of lockdown, it'll require a certain amount of times getting a bit closer to people before we start to feel comfortable doing that again. And it requires a certain number of reps of doing workouts, of making better food choices, of drinking more water, of going to bed earlier, or whatever it may be, before that becomes a habit. And that number varies person to person. The frequency varies person to person, goal to goal, situation to situation. But the ultimate thing to remember is we'll only get there by getting those reps in. There's no other way to get there. There's no way of creating a habit of doing something without doing it. So whatever it is you're perhaps struggling to get in the habit of, just keep doing it. Do it today, tomorrow, whenever you feel it needs to be done based on what it is. And over time, eventually you'll look back and almost wonder why it was ever a thing before. In a year's time, we'll look at time hop pictures of us all 2 or 5 meters apart. I think that looks a little bit weird, in the same way that we currently look at time hop pictures from a couple of years ago. I think how weird it is when there's 30 of us in a room practically on top of each other. It's just repetitions. Keep going and it'll get easier with time.